A detective who solves mysteries with the help of a cat. Detective Lila Hart was not your typical investigator. Known for her sharp wit and unmatched intuition, she was also infamous for her peculiar choice of partner, a sleek black cat named Midnight. Midnight was more than just a pet, he was Lila's sharp-eyed, four-legged accomplice. Together, they roamed the streets of Gotham Green, solving mysteries that left even the city's best detectives scratching their heads. One misty autumn evening, a call came through. "Detective Hart. We need you down at the museum. There's been a situation." When Lila and Midnight arrived at the Gotham Green Museum, the curator, an anxious man named Mr. Hollis, was pacing by the entrance. "Thank goodness you're here," he whispered. "One of our most prized artifacts has gone missing, the Golden Falcon statue. It disappeared from a locked room, and the alarms never went off." Lila knelt down, scratching Midnight under the chin. "You hear that, Midnight? A locked room mystery." Midnight responded with a flick of his tail, his emerald eyes glinting with interest. The detective and her feline partner followed Mr. Hollis to the exhibit hall. Lila noted the room's single exit, high windows, and various displays, each lined with a thin layer of dust, except, she observed, the dust seemed disrupted near the case of the Golden Falcon. "What else was in this room, Mr. Hollis?" Lila asked. "Just the statue and a few decorative vases. Nothing else has been touched." As Mr. Hollis explained the room's layout, Midnight crept along the wall, slipping under a nearby table. He paused, sniffing the air, and meowed in a low, warning tone. Lila's eyes narrowed. Midnight only gave that particular meow when he found something significant. Followed his gaze and saw the faint outline of a dusty footprint, small and almost imperceptible, by the statue's empty pedestal. "Someone was here," she murmured. "But why was the alarm silent?" Mr. Hollis paled. I don't know. It's supposed to activate even if someone as much as breathes in here." Lila crouched by the footprint, examining its faint trail, which led to the room's air vent. "Could someone have come in through the vent?" Mr. Hollis shook his head. "Not without breaking it open. And there's no sign of forced entry." Lila pondered this, watching Midnight paw at the base of the pedestal. Suddenly, she noticed a small, strange device hidden in the shadows. She pulled it out, a jammer, designed to block electronic signals. "So that's why the alarm didn't go off," she muttered. "The thief knew exactly how to disable the security system." Midnight, ever curious, wandered over to a nearby vase, where he batted at a small, shiny object. Lila picked it up, a golden feather charm. She smiled, petting Midnight's head. "This is our first clue. Only one person in town sells charms like this, Madame Zara." The next morning, Lila and Midnight strolled into Madame Zara's Curiosities, a dimly lit shop filled with strange trinkets and mystical artifacts. Madame Zara herself, draped in flowing scarves, was behind the counter, her eyes narrowing as she spotted the detective, Detective Hart. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" she asked, her tone carefully neutral. Lila held up the feather charm. "This was left at the scene of a recent heist. Recognize it?" Madame Zara raised an eyebrow but didn't falter. "I sell hundreds of charms. That could belong to anyone." Midnight jumped onto the counter, his eyes locked on a small box in the corner of the shop. He let out a growl, clawing at the lid. "Seems like my partner has his suspicions," Lila said, crossing her arms. Madame Zara sighed, pulling the box closer and opening it. Inside were rows of identical golden feather charms, each meticulously organized. "All right, I sold a few of these recently. One was to a man named Leo Barrett. Shifty fellow. Kept asking about the museum's layout." "Thank you, Madame Zara," Lila said, tipping her hat. Back on the street, Lila scratched Midnight under the chin. "Good job, partner. Now, let's pay Mr. Barrett a visit." They tracked Leo Barrett to a rundown apartment on the city's outskirts. The door was ajar, and Lila could hear shuffling inside. She motioned for Midnight to stay close and pushed the door open. Leo, a wiry man with a haunted look in his eyes, was frantically packing a bag, the golden falcon statue gleaming from within. "Going somewhere, Mr. Barrett?" Lila's voice cut through the silence. Leo whipped around, his eyes darting between Lila and Midnight. How did you find me?" Lila smirked. "A little bird told me." Just then, Midnight leapt forward, landing gracefully on the bag and blocking Leo from grabbing it. Startled, Leo stumbled back, giving Lila enough time to cuff him. "You may want to reconsider your line of work, Mr. Barrett," she said as she retrieved the golden falcon. "Especially when my partner has a nose for trouble." Leo whipped around, his eyes darting between Lila and Midnight. How did you find me?" Lila smirked. "A little bird told me." Just then, Midnight leapt forward, landing gracefully on the bag and blocking Leo from grabbing it. Startled, Leo stumbled back, giving Lila enough time to cuff him. "You may want to reconsider your line of work, Mr. Barrett," she said as she retrieved the golden falcon. "Especially when my partner has a nose for trouble." The case closed, Lila and Midnight returned the statue to the museum, much to Mr. Hollis's relief. Back in her office that evening, Lila poured herself a cup of tea and set out a saucer of cream for Midnight. "Another case solved," she said, raising her cup. "And all thanks to you, partner." Midnight purred contentedly, his tail flicking as if to say, "It's all in a day's work," and in Gotham Green, the legend of the detective and her mystery-solving cat only grew.